Hi, this is Ed, and you might think I'm in Maui, but actually I took the picture from the deck of a condo that we had in Kahana, which is around 10 or 12 miles north of what used to be Lahaina. And we really love Lahaina and all the shops, especially the bars and Cheeseburger in Paradise. And so in honor of Lahaina and Jimmy Buffett, here we are showing this scene. That's a real picture I took, although I enhanced the rainbow part of it. We're here live. And what is today? Today is the 14th of September, and the year is 23. And I was just on a call to this guy in England, and then another call right after that with a lady in Pittsburgh, and they each wanted to tell me about October 1st. And October 1st, why is that special? It's because they both said it, and they weren't on the same program. It was two different. They both said October 1 is the date agreed by local chambers of commerce to get employees to come back to the office. A come back to the office day. And so now they're getting ready to welcome them back with cleaning and checking the air conditioning ducts for clarity and hiring up people to come and clean much more often than previously and make it a safe place to go. So, Paul, what do you think of that idea relevant to the people who you deal with? Paul Falcone, esteemed author and good friend and multi-time speaker on global TV talk show. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks. It's interesting. Is it a hard line in the sand where everyone comes back 100%? Or is that the day that we're just bringing people back into the office partially so they'll continue to work in a hybrid kind of arrangement? There's so much going on out there. Again, it's the expression, we're building the plane while we're flying it. We've not done this before. And CEOs want people back in for a number of reasons, right? They talk about productivity paranoia. If I can't see them, I don't know what they're doing. But there's more than that. It's loss of culture. It's loss of collaboration. You want creativity and innovation. It's really hard to do over a Zoom. It's much easier to do in person. And I'm also reading that studies are coming out now that are basically saying productivity is going down in the United States. And they're wondering, is that because, we continue to have remote workers? On the other hand, and this is another strong movement, when you study Gen Y and Gen Z, one of the things they really want, study after study, top 5, is they want some form of career, life, family balance, control, equilibrium, whatever you want to call it. And for some people, if you force me back 5 days a week, I'm sorry, but I'm looking for another job. That's real. So COVID ended up fulfilling a need for us that predated, the pandemic. We were looking for a reason to have more work-life family balance, and the remote work that COVID caused, excuse me, I have a frog this morning. The remote work solved that problem inadvertently. And I don't know that people are going to want to give it up. And it's still a tight talent market out there. So I suspect that most companies are going to stay hybrid. And even if you say 10-1, 10-1 may be the day to bring everyone back just to say hi to everyone and re-welcome them to the company. But they'll probably keep some form of hybrid work in there is what I expect to see.
Makes sense. Eve Nesby, thank you so much for coming on our show. This is edition number 1 for you. You and
Thank
I
you.
met at that special event that Paul Falcone spoke at a few months ago here in San Diego. And I thank you for trusting me to want to be on this show. So, Eve, why don't you introduce yourself? Band of Hands is the company, bandofhands.com/fitness. So you're not a healthcare company, are you?
No, we're not. That's just one of the many faces that we have. So Banded Hands is an opportunity for companies with 1 employee or 10,000 employees to offload those employees onto our platform and just focus on what you got in business to do. And that is to have more clients, make more widgets, make more profit. I'm sure that you did not get into business to do paperwork, unemployment claims, EDD claims, all that kind of stuff. And so Band of Hands really takes the pressure and the minutia and the worries about compliance off of any American business owners, and we put them on our own shoulders and allow you to do the fun stuff, and that's run a business.
When I first started in advertising and PR at my own shop in Boston a long time ago, my God, that drowned me almost. I mean, I knew how to sell ads. I knew how to bring people together. I've been doing it since I was that big, but not about running a business. I had no idea how complicated and frankly, how depressing that was.
Yeah, we hear that a lot. And in fact, in the state of California, where we happen to be globally headquartered, we have the most stringent employment laws. And Paul can attest to this. We have a company up in Sacramento. There's a yoga studio. They had 2 fitness studios, and they were hit with a compliance fines of over $200,000. And they only had 8 employees. So it's because they didn't know what they didn't know. And now they're paying the price for it. And we take all of that kind of what keeps you up at night off of your shoulders so you can sleep.
Speaking about keeping up at night, staying up because you're thinking about everything else other than sleeping, Gary Sanger, premier, top tier, retained executive search. I'm sure your business is booming right now. So you probably are up at night doing work.
It's happened before. You know, it's a situation of if you're not serving your clients, somebody is. And I just soon be that one that's taking care of their needs, taking care of, of the issues. We're in the retained executive search business. So we're that proverbial headhunter that is partnering with our corporate clients where they have gaps in their executive teams, their senior management teams. And for example, we currently have a big CFO search. We have a client that had the first interview with this person yesterday. And so I was following up a couple times to make sure this gentleman showed up, make sure he was still committed, and he was, and then had the interview. And so I did the debrief with him 7 or 8 o'clock last night. I had a couple text exchanges with the executive from the client, and I'll get the debrief today. So you got to do it in a time frame that makes sense for your client. I mean, I'm operating on their time. And if it happens to be forward 8 or 9 hours overseas, if it happens to be 3 hours East Coast time, or just whenever it is, you make it happen. You absolutely have to make it happen. And so if you're not operating from their shoes, which Eve, I think, in essence, you're doing, that's the purpose of how we make a return on investment for our clients' time and for our clients' fees that they pay us.
Last week, just on this topic, last week I produced one of these talk shows with 10 people on it from across time zones, and it was 5 a.m. here in California, and it was 8 p.m. in Singapore, same day. And I did that on purpose to see whether I could survive that, and I did. But I'm not doing that again anytime soon, though. What I will do is set up that kind of a cast of characters to start California time, 4 p.m. or 5 p.m., because then it's 8:30 or 9 or whatever the next morning over in Singapore. And that, for me, that's easier, and it works for those people also. The people in Europe don't like it, though. So, Gary, in the world of retained executive search, it sounds high and mighty, and it sounds rich. So I would imagine, tell me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine that most of your clients are large corporations. Are they in California, or adding on to what you just started to say, or is it outside of California as well?
It's a blend. It's probably half and half. You and I had spoken before, and I did a little research. What makes a retained search? How does it happen? What's my marketplace look like? I did a snapshot here of the last half a dozen to dozen searches that we've worked on. And so if I may, just let me go through. Here's a headline of where companies chose to retain us and it talks about their size, their industry, and the position. $2 billion privately held company, mid-market global engineering. We've done 3 pieces of work for them in the last several months: director of manufacturing, plant manager, and a cost improvement manager. And these are people we found across the country. Each of those was located here to the southwest or to the west. We have a hospitality products manufacturing company, 100 million, privately held. We did recruit a controller for them in that particular position. In the first example, there was a promotion, there was a replacement, and it was a new position as to why those were open. The controller position, the incumbent retired. Frankly, they were delighted that she retired and could upgrade and get a person of a better caliber. We recruited for a $1.5 billion to $2 billion retail home furnishings company. We did a product line manager for them. The previous person is going to be retiring soon, so we basically were trying to get succession planning to do. And their CHRO left, and we found a replacement for that person. $500 million nonprofit, CFO position. The person left. Previous to that, we had hired a director of DEI, new position. Municipality in Orange County, HR and risk director. Previous person retired. $75 million municipality. And finally, a $20 million HVAC company, where for growth, they were hiring a general manager and a department manager who hadn't performed well, we were helping to replace. So cross-section, 20 million to a couple billion. Here's really, their dance team had a gap in it. That C-level floor had a gap in it. Their senior management had a gap in it. So sorry for the long story. However, specific examples of where companies chose to go get retained search.
Well, that's excellent. I really wish you well, and I thank you for that picture of success. Paul Falcone, you've just released the newest book, number, 16 or 17?
Yeah, this was
1800, and come on, let's get this number right.
Would you mind holding that book cover up so
sure, since you were kind enough to ask.
The world can see it.
It looks, wait, I have to get it squared in the thing there.
Okay, so it says first-time manager leading through crisis.
Yeah.
So first-time manager, that would mean someone recruited, not necessarily by Gary, but
not by Gary. No.
And then all of a sudden they find themselves in, and they have to manage people who don't look like that person.
Yeah, the funny thing, Ed, was, so there's a first-time manager book which came out in the 80s, which has been around for now 40 years, 7th edition, 500,000 copies. HarperCollins decided we're going to build a portfolio under that umbrella. So they said, would you write the first-time HR manager? And I said I would be happy to. And that's coming out in the spring of 2024. But they said, wait, Paul, before you do anything, we're going to first-time sales manager, first-time marketing manager, finance, IT. This is the concept of where they want to go, which I think is a great idea. But they said, we want a book that can pair with all the others. Like if you pick up the book, First-Time Sales Manager, they also want a book called The First-Time Blank Manager. What would it be? Could you give that some thought? And I said, I don't have to think about it. Leading through crisis. And they said, really? And I said, everybody I know feels like their hair is on fire. Their employees' wires are exposed. There's so much going on. We're still coming out of the, in this post-pandemic reintegration phase. It's really hard out there. And I said, there's so many things that aren't taught in management training. You don't get it in your MBA program. Where's the stuff that falls through the cracks? And so that's what we decided. It's like, how do we address really the current that's going on out there? It's part of the First-Time Manager series, Ed. It's not really written for first-time managers. It's written for anybody in management, but it is part of that series, because that series is what they're focusing on right now.
Now, why wouldn't that book, amongst your other books too, but why wouldn't that book be absolutely required reading in Harvard and Stanford and everywhere?
I totally agree. I hope they're listening to this podcast. The answer is that is correct. Okay, so here's the funny thing. when you look at the issues that we have, the way I wrote the book was there are individual, departmental, and company crises, as well as geopolitical crises. How do you deal with these various things? And I think where you get into the weeds, it's like, well, wait a second. We heard our employees are talking to a union tonight. They might think of organizing us. What can I do? Or what can we do? Or what can't we do? Or, uh-oh, I heard of M&A. There might be a merger and acquisition, or we might be being bought. How do I keep my job? And then, you build this stuff out. Employee burnout is real. Managing the unseen, the remote workforce, that's real. You have to address this stuff. Even this idea of what we call the preemptive strike of retaliation. Employees are sophisticated consumers. If they feel their boss is out for them, they're going to complain to human resources using words like discrimination and harassment and retaliation. If they can make the conduct complaint about the boss before their boss could take some kind of adverse action against them, they realize it's going to look like retaliation. So, you have to raise awareness. You have to build management muscle. I don't write a book like this to be paranoid. And what I tell people is there's actually a happy ending. There's a way to handle this stuff very constructively. But leadership is a team sport. You're not supposed to do this on your own. You've got to make sure you're always partnering with your boss. And if your company has an HR department, make sure HR is in the loop. Those are your allies. But teaching this to leaders is news because they don't get this stuff in business school. And a lot of books that are out there teach you what to do. They don't teach you how to do it. I like to use the scripts. I like to, use checklists. I like to kind of make sure that they know if there is union organizing attempts going on, you have the right to do the following, but don't do these things. Because if you do these things or you say these things, you could be violating the National Labor Relations Act and getting your company in trouble. So again, it's the stuff that's not taught in business school, and the stuff that truthfully other books don't necessarily cover. That's my space. That's where I like to be.
So Eve, are you, and I don't mean this in any demeaning way at all, but are you like a den mother? all these smaller companies out there, and they all come to you with these issues, and you got to solve problems, or is there mental illness involved in helping
With me
people?
or
No, everybody else.
Yeah, well, I
Are
love
we
what
doing
Paul said.
diagnosis on this show? Is that what Ed is doing here to you, Eve?
I'm really not a doctor. I just play one on TV.
Yeah, I want to talk to my HR guy. Paul,
Yes.
well, that's a great loaded question, I think, Ed. I was just going to piggyback onto what Paul said. Like, all of our HR people are schooled in Paul Falcone University. Our HR people internally are the HR team that anybody that's on our platform can get a hold of. And so if we have a manager, a first-time manager I'm doing a presentation next week for 220 yogurt owners. There's a huge franchise. I won't name them. They have 220 owners. I'm going to be doing a 3-day seminar with them to talk about how we can help them. And one of the ways is that when they hire a first-time manager, they have the backing of our robust HR team and also all of Paul's books. Of course, I have a few of them, not just the ones we're mentioning today.
Thank you, Eve.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. You're welcome. So yes, we actually are the den mother. We can help with disciplinary issues. If Gary is doing something wrong, they can call and say, hey, how do we counsel and how do we coach Gary into success, rather than how are we going to just fire him because he's bugging us? Now, there is a succession of discipline that will help walk them through to keep them out of trouble, right? When there's a compliance, if Gary says, hey, I was wrongfully terminated, that comes back to us. These business owners don't have to worry about that anymore. They've got us behind them, and we've got a great legal team as well. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes.
I'm going to change my title. I need to be Chief Den Mother. Okay.
Well, Ed, let me chime in. This is really serious business. I mean, it's huge business. It could be the demise of a business if they do stupid things. And I'm a sports nut. I absolutely love sports. Now let's look at a few examples about some of these billionaire and mega millionaire owners, about how they step in it all the time. I mean, there's recent cases right now in the NFL, right? Recent cases of that. Mr. Sterling, and I shouldn't use the word Mr. Sterling, former Clipper owner, he typified everything bad in what an owner could do in terms of how he operated that. Paul, in the world of stress, my goodness, workplace, COVID helped it. You get bosses, I especially think of single moms who had perhaps the worst, most difficult job of any, as their kids are coming and going and coming and going in out of school, and yet to have the day job and trying to make that happen. I had a couple ladies in that same situation. One especially just said, look, I can't deal with this. I got two daughters, each either at home, back in school, and back again. This stress word, it could be very expensive if in fact it's not controlled. Going back to Paul's book, I'm a disciple of yours, Paul. What one does when you sense something like that and how you deal with it, how you diffuse it, that's a big, big deal versus piling on. I mean, the number one, well, anyway, I could go on and on, but this is real business, real current top line headlines that companies must take care of.
Agreed.
I don't know what to say. Paul, why don't you take over?
Well, no, I appreciate the kind words. You're all right. I mean, we're talking about issues that everyone's talking about, bringing them back to work. That's a toughie. What are you doing with the burnout that's going on out there? How do you motivate people when you don't have anywhere to grow them, right? Organizations are getting flatter. So people are like, I'm glad I'm doing a great job and thank you for the recognition, but when can I expect my promotion? And I want more than that 4% merit increase or whatever it happens to be. These are tough times, and we're still living through this. I mean, the supply chain backups that we had from COVID are still real. Still see empty shelves, and Lord knows we see sky high prices. I mean, what you're looking at when you fill up your gas tank and when you go shopping at the grocery store takes people's breath away. It's like, how did this happen?
Yeah, it's over $6 a gallon, unless you go to Costco.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's like, how are people supposed to afford this? So now what we're seeing is unions, and companies are, worried about the fact that their employees are figuring out maybe we should be joining unions. And you're hearing this in the political front. Politics are crazy. Global warming. There's so many, war in Ukraine. There's so many things that people are anxious about these days. These are not calm days. These are challenging days. And part of what I wrote in the book is, how do you let your employees let off steam about non-work related issues that are bothering them? Normally, I would say anything relating to politics or religion does not belong in the workplace. But I wrote a chapter in the book that talks about sometimes you have to make it safe for your employees to let out steam, either one-on-one with you or as a group. It doesn't mean talking red hat versus blue hat. I won't allow that. Or this is not a political thing, but how is this affecting you, and how can we as the rest of the team help you out? How can we have your back? We're all in this together. We're here for one another, but I got to make it safe for people to be able to make themselves vulnerable. Let the shoulders fall down, exhale, because there's so much noise out there right now. It is hard for people. And as much as I've always thought my writing is, I hope, is a gift, because it gives people back to themselves. It helps managers understand what they can do versus what they can't. But more importantly, it's how they do it. You can have a steel hand, but you have to have a velvet glove. You have to come from caring. Bottom line is, when you think of who's someone's favorite boss and you ask people to describe their favorite boss, and they talk about, she's someone who always had my back. He challenged me to do things I didn't even think I was ready for. He seemed to have more faith in me than I had in myself at the time. That comes from the person's character, and it comes from the person's caring. And if you can become that kind of boss and become someone's favorite boss, they'll run into you 20 years later. And so, oh my God, Paul Falcone, how are you? I still think WWPD, what would Paul do? You taught me so much. You helped me get, that's why we're working. That's literally why we're working. It's not the paycheck and the benefits. It's because leadership is the greatest gift the workplace offers. And it gives you a chance to touch people's lives and build their careers. That's cool. There's not a lot of opportunities on the planet to do that. So that's always been my take on the whole thing.
Paul, I love what you just said, WWPD. I didn't even think of that, but I just thought of our friend Rochelle, and she works for this company, WD-40. What do you think that means?
Water displacement theory, number 40. The 39th didn't work, but the 40th did. So it's water displacement at 40. No extra charge. There, live from your den, mother. Back to you.
Eve, wow. Drop the mic. I'm done. I'm done. That was worth the whole thing.
And the brand, and the brand to know from which, from whence you've come. Going back to this, I mean, I'm a longtime member of a wonderful networking organization called Provisors. It's up to 8,000 people now. I've been a member since '99. Know, like, trust. You got to know somebody, you got to like somebody, you got to trust somebody to do business with them. I think the same thing would apply in a lot of ways with your boss. Is that boss totally out there for himself or herself? Or are they out there for the enterprise? Are they trying to make that happen? I think that's a big deal when you, in fact, get that integrity and trust with your boss. I want to go back to the point about going back to work. I'm seeing this a lot with my clients. Don't overpromise. Don't make up stuff just to get somebody hired. And then when they're in, then in fact, that flexibility is not there. I'm seeing the majority of my clients, they will look at 3 or 4 days or core, you got to be there. 1 or 2 days, you have to be there. Mondays or Fridays are optional. They get very well-defined situations on that. And most of my essential businesses that make widgets, they might have 1 or 2% of their professionals that they could have a hybrid situation. All the rest of you have to be there. So when you look at making widgets, you can't do that from your, from your den. You can't do that from your kitchen. So I think to be clear and understand why, many of those service providers, that's a permanent situation. You get executives that are professional providers that have moved to Charlotte, they've moved to Seattle, they've moved to Boise, when in fact they were here in California. And basically their customers don't know the difference because they're always available there to make it happen.
So what about the vaccines? So I've been notified by my doctors to get the flu shot and get the booster, COVID booster, and don't delay. And so people coming back to the office, not political here, but it is, a lot of people don't want to get vaccinated for whatever the reason. And so how do you regulate that? And that almost becomes a mental health issue. I don't know. Paul, what do you think?
I was hoping you weren't going to call me. That's a really tough question, Ed.
And I was
Okay.
hoping he would.
Yeah, thanks.
Me too.
Very nice of you to say. Okay.
WWPD.
Yeah. I don't know what WWPD would do in that case. Okay, so here's a scoop. This is live. I think they said the new vaccine is going to be available in October, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And so, yeah, you want people back to work, but you want them fully vaccinated, but a lot depends. So my last full-time job, I was the Chief Human Resources Officer for the Motion Picture and Television Fund, which is the retirement home for the entertainment people, the showbiz people. Think independent and assisted living, long-term care, skilled nursing, memory care, that whole thing. And we went through COVID together until when I opened my consulting firm, 4th of July, 2022, the prior 5 years I had been with them. And I cannot tell you how hard it is to get through the COVID pandemic in a retirement home. Because if you remember, in this country, we first got the first case of COVID was in a retirement home up in Seattle. And because of the advanced age of the elders, there's that compromised immunity situation that makes it really, really hard. But we had to go through some really tough times in terms of, yes, first of all, they're all essential workers, Ed, to your point, or Gary, to your point, rather. You're a nurse, you have to come to work. There's no question about remote. You can't nurse remotely. Okay, but then there's the idea that, yes, you have to get vaccinated. And if you're not willing to get vaccinated, luckily we had laws by the CDPH, the California Department of Public Health, which basically said to be able to provide the care, you have to be vaccinated, period. So it took that level of discretion away because we were in the healthcare space. But the rules changed constantly. And yes, it was on the employer in a very regulated environment, which healthcare always is, to make sure that all the employees are 100% up to date. In our retirement home community, we had to create our own laboratory to do the testing. And we had to set that all up. And of course, we were giving our own vaccinations. We had the nursing team doing that. It was exhausting. And now we face a new thing. We're kind of in that post-COVID phase. Yet, if you read the newspaper today, guess what? It's coming back. I just got tested. I tested positive about a month ago. And basically, it was asymptomatic. I just had a sore throat. But because I had a sore throat, I thought I'd check. And it turned out to be COVID positive. So certainly it's not to the point where I don't want to say this, I'm not a medical practitioner, but we're not hearing the numbers of fatalities that we heard in 2020. And so some people will figure, well, it's gone, whereas other employers go on and make sure that there's safety out there. I think the bottom line is it depends on your industry. It depends on the advice you're getting from your legal counsel. And basically, you have to do this on a company by company basis. It's not going to be a one size fits all. Going through the pandemic was one size fits all in many cases. But in May of 2023, when President Biden said, we can take us off red light and just go to yellow light, basically the pandemic isn't over, but we're through the worst of it, that relaxed standards in a lot of ways. So we are going to see these flare-ups. And now that companies are requiring people to come back physically onto the site, yeah, you're going to run into conflict again, proving the point that we're still building the plane while we're flying it. We're doing the best that we can.
Eve, what do you deal with when you have all these different companies?
Yeah, so the companies they're managing their people on site. So if you owned a hair salon, you're managing your folks on site. And so those discretionary practices are indeed up to you. So if you want to allow people to come when you're vaccinated or non-vaccinated, that's entirely up to you. We're the little squirrels on the back end, just making sure people get paid on time. And, it's only $12 a week per person. So the economy of what we're doing welcomes any company at any level because the price point is so low. So we literally have companies all over the nation who have very different opinions about these things, and we respect and we honor their opinions. Again, ours is this tactical thing on the back end where we're just running the payroll, doing the HR stuff, taking care of workers' comp claims, unemployment claims, the legal stuff, all of that. So we really let all of this stuff up to the decisions of the owners themselves or the managers and the leaders at those different locations.
Yeah, Gary?
I think it's a bigger issue. I think it's why is the company in business? Let's just go back to the basics. The more complex this world gets, the more crazy it gets, the more simple I think we have to think about it. Why is my company in business? XYZ company, what's our customer? What are we trying to do for the customer, with the customer? And as you get people that don't want to play, I'm a simple old country boy from Idaho. Farm boy, country boy from Idaho, long time ago. And if you need to explain it, let's just start to talk about what's our customer getting from us. And you, the employee, frankly, if you're not aligned to that, if you're not in our business to be in our business to be service to that customer, let me go check this door. Oh my goodness, it's not locked from the inside. Why are you still here, pal? Some tough love on this, I think at times is needed. If you choose for whatever reason not to get a COVID booster shot, health-wise, the company is willing to support that with time, with, pay for it if there's a cost, and you still don't want to play. I see that as an opportunity to make a deal and get you out. Now that sounds cold, but I want to worry about my 95% of the people that really do care and really do put their time and passion and energy in to servicing that customer. I'm really tired of having that few that scream the loudest and think they're not being treated well get too much of the airtime. I want to deal with those 95% that are making us, the company, really, really great. And so going back to work, getting a booster shot, not picking up that call, being subjected to bad customer service, I'm just really on a mission on that. I had the opportunity to smile last night when I went a quick trip to Vaughn's. I'm getting some milk, I'm getting some bagels, I'm getting something else. And in the checkout line is, first of all, a lady at the very front of it who was having a bad day, but the checker was really soothing to her and calmed her down. The next person in line wasn't so nice, but the checker still was really calming this person down. And then the checker was saying how crazy it was out there. I noticed this young man right behind me, dressed nice, clean cut, probably 16 or 17. And I saw they had a $25 Starbucks card that he's probably buying as a gift for somebody. And I just spontaneously thought, this negativity is going on. God, I need to smile. I need to feel good. So I whispered over to the checker and I said, hey, just please put that on my bill and don't say anything to him. And so as I walked out, I turned around and, did a knuckles and said, hey, have a great day, pay it forward. I felt so darn good about that. And then in the parking lot, as I'm driving away, I see him, I wave at him, and my goodness, he's beaming from ear to ear. I just think we have to get back on the positivity of that. It just felt good. And I just don't want to be dragged down by naysayers, by negative folks. I want to go out there and just kill it for my customers, because I know in their shoes, they've got 50 other things they're trying to deal with. And so the Eves of the world, the Pauls of the world, hopefully Gary, we go make a difference for these clients. It sounds like a commercial, but I think if it's coming from the soul, coming from the heart, that's where we'll go out and make a difference.
Paul and Eve and Gary. So for everybody, I read an article the other day, learning and development.com or something like that, about the idea, I'm changing the subject a little bit, but the idea of lateral, I'm sorry, retention is the main theme of what I'm about to blurt out. Retaining talent by giving them more opportunity to learn something new before they quit because they don't like what they're doing. And to retain that talent by moving them laterally, a transfer of skills, or to learn new skills, upskill, and retain that person with a potential new assignment somewhere else, but within the same company, rather than chase them out the door. What do you think of that, Paul?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. The whole idea is, when you're looking at flatter organizations as a rule, it's hard when you don't have promotions and you don't have ladders. I mean, do you have just a VP level and then a CEO, or do you have a VP and SVP and EVP and all this other kind of stuff? If the organizations are going flatter, you still have to keep them focused on career and professional development, because we know that's what they want. We've studied the generations, Gen Y, Gen Z, the 45 and under millennials, the 25 and under Zoomers. We know what they want. It's career and professional development. What they're not saying is they want money. What they're not saying is they want promotions. What they're saying is they want career and professional development. And that means helping them get broader skills and learn. The glue that binds someone to the organization is the learning curve. And as much as you can keep people in an active learning curve, the better they're going to do, and the longer they're going to stay, and the more valuable they become. I worked in an organization that was a biotech, bioscience kind of company, and they had donor centers where it was a matter of, we weren't taking blood, we were taking plasma. And with the plasma, you can have 3 different jobs in the donor center. You could be the phlebotomist who takes the injection, takes the plasma out. You can be a donor processor, plasma processor. Then you can get, so there's 3 trainings. Then you can get cross-trained on the quality side. There were 4 different potential ways you could A, make more money, and B, add more value to the organization. And so that's kind of the concept. Give them broader responsibilities. They're probably going to stick around. They're going to make better contributions to the organization. And for them, they're going to build out their resumes, which is what everything wants. So I think it's a great, if you can do it in your business, Ed, it's a wonderful thing to rotate those types of opportunities.
Eve, do you help with onboarding?
Yes, it's a great question. Everything that we do is a tech-based. So all the onboarding is done electronically through people's cell phones or their computer. And then we create electronic records of everybody's file. So for tracking purposes, that's all on our shoulders.
Eve, would you talk about a couple of your best practices, whether it's within your firm or your client? What would be a couple of 5-star things that you just think are outstanding?
Best practices that Band of Hands does?
And or your clients, either one that you could share.
For high, well, there's that's a two-sided question. So
Exactly.
our clients, yeah, our clients are amazing. So I think I wanted to go back to Paul Falcone when he was talking about the remote, because we've got companies out there that are on our platform that are looking to hire workers. We have a free job board. You could put as many positions on our platform as possible. And the remote on-site battle is real. And that battle for talent is still it's alive and well. And when you talked about October 1st, this French word popped into my head, bon chance, which means good luck, because there's so many companies out there that are feeling this lack of productivity, and they want to hire people to bring them back or have their people come back. And these single parents or just not single parents, but the moms, the dads that are enjoying being home don't have to commute anymore. They're valuing their time. And there are companies out there that will say, hey, Paul, we will hire you remotely, or you only have to come in one day into the office. Or these other companies who are stubborn, maybe for a good cause, are saying, nope, absolutely not. You've got to come back. And they're going to lose great people to other folks who will be flexible. There's 3 things that employees want these days, and that's flexibility, flexibility, and flexibility. Right. And so this is a way, this remote hybrid type of situation is a way for them to get that flexibility. So my question to Paul is, I kind of wanted to flip this around and is ask, how do you manage that? How do you manage a remote workforce where you're not feeling that productivity is being lost? And I know Rochelle has a great answer to this question, and as you're going to have her back. But Paul, what do you say? How do you keep a remote workforce active, engaged, and productive?
Great question. You have to be purposeful, deliberate in terms of what you're doing. You don't have the option anymore of walking by people's offices or catching up with them in the break room. So that means, and Gary, I'll answer your question too, when it comes to best practices and onboarding. What I think is you've got to build that personal relationship in general, but when it's a remote workforce, it's got to be that much stronger. So in terms of onboarding, what I've always recommended is you could have the manager do this, but I'd rather have the manager's manager do this. Reach out to the new hire at day 30, at day 60, and at day 90. Have a series of questions you can ask them about their onboarding experience, but most importantly, how can I help? People love hearing that, right? Tell me about any surprises you've had, Paul. Tell me about achievements you had. Tell me about how your coworkers are supporting you. Does anyone stand out? And there's different questions at day 30, then day 60, then day 90. And at day 90, you tell them, you know what, we're going to change this going forward. We're going to meet in 90 days again, but you're going to set the meeting on my calendar. You're going to set the agenda. And I want to hear about how you're doing in terms of progression towards your goals and your own career and professional development. And then you start that quarterly rhythm. And that's kind of how you get that achievement mentality. Eve, why that works in a remote environment is if you're having one-on-one meetings with your direct reports every week, you've got to have that connectivity. Otherwise, people can get lost in the shuffle. Gen Z, the 25 and under generation, the Zoomers are testing out as the loneliest and most isolated and most depressed generation on the planet, even more so than the people in the retirement homes. And one of the reasons CEOs want them back is they know this social isolation that came from COVID is not necessarily good for them. We need to get them kind of back into the mainstream. So there's some goodwill in there too. This is all not, it's not all about, selfishness and we want them back because we can't see them. Part of it is if we really want to maintain a culture and we want to make sure that our people feel socialized and they feel like they're part of the team, get them back on site to some degree so that they're not feeling totally isolated. But I think you can have these touch points that you're deliberately building in on a weekly basis. Make sure you're doing staff meetings for your entire team at least every other week. Figure out a way to get people together on a monthly basis, even if it's to do just a start, stop, continue exercise, or just have fun and have some kind of virtual luncheon if you need to. And then on a quarterly basis, you're talking about their career and professional development. You build that kind of formula, Gary, and you're going to find that people are responding. And Eve, for you, as you're advising your clients, I think it could really help to give them that structure because people tend to want the structure. They want the feedback. They don't want to leave a company saying, oh, I lost Paul Falcone, who's a great player. because he felt like we didn't care about his career and professional development. And he just didn't think we were that into him, when in reality, we set it up so that he could motivate himself at all these specific windows. So.
Thank you for being my guest on Global TV Talk Show. I really love this. This has really been informative. I don't want it to end, but I bet you guys have other things to do today. So I want you to come back and let's do another one. Perhaps the Silicon Valley focus in a few weeks from now. Gary, would you like to sum up about what you're going to do the rest of your day today?
Well, I want to sum up on where I think we were just talking. Those comments are wonderful. I sense those successful companies are sharing what their results are. They're sharing their key performance indicators. And if I'm on that team, I want to know as to how the company's doing. I want to know the trends. I want to know our growth. I want to know our customer satisfaction rating. So that scoreboard, I don't go to a football game where there's not a scoreboard. I want to know how my company's doing. And my company celebrates those wins. They celebrate how we've gotten there and become so good and become so successful. And we've now done it for 100 years. So the development stuff, the rotation stuff, the customer satisfaction, the get-togethers, that's all great. But the master plan, what's that scoreboard about how my company's doing? I want to know that, because I know my boss or my boss's boss, he's going to isolate me if I'm one of the good guys that helped make that happen. I also know he or she's going to take out that person to the bottom that perhaps didn't play so well. So big picture, we're still out here in a business and we keep score. It's really a pleasure to be here, Ed. I so appreciate that. And which part of the rainbow did you touch up on that in terms of your picture?
So I increased. Okay, because I've got.
No, I'm serious. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Oh, you can't see it here, but this magic phone. I increased the contrast, and at the same time lowered the temperature.
Very nice.
Of that, and it's just like magical. Wow.
Well done.
So, and I'm actually 103 years old, and that's why you see that I look so good too.
You look great.
PaulFalconeHR.com. That's how people can find you, right?
That's it. Thank you, Ed. Appreciate that. LinkedIn too. Paul Falcone 1 on LinkedIn. So anytime.
Great. And people, you could see bandofhands.com/.
And you could just do that. You don't have to do fitness. We have fitness, we have franchises, we have small business. We started with fitness and then grew from there. So yeah, bandofhands.com.
Great to meet you. Really a pleasure. Paul, nice to see you again. And it is 1,800 books as of next April. Huh? Take care.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
I have to move the needle here. 1 second.
Moving the needle.
Thank you.